It's 10 o'clock in the evening in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. As dusk descends, bars and restaurants get ready for an evening entertaining the city's many tourists. However, away from the old town, officials in Estonia are tense. So-called active measures by the Russian government, including cyber attacks, flypasts from military jets, and even the abduction of a diplomat, have the Estonian government concerned that Vladimir Putin is making eyes at Russia's smaller neighbour.
First of all, in the bigger picture, we say it's nothing personal. We are part of the West, we are part of NATO and the EU, and militarily we are the weakling. So we are, in a sense, a low-cost, high-reward target, because if NATO fails to act or disintegrates as a result of attack on the Baltic states, Putin will have achieved its the grandest of his strategic goals.
In July, NATO agreed to send reinforcements to the Baltic states, including a battalion from the UK. They are due to arrive early next year. Here at the Estonian Ministry of Defence, they are grateful for the reinforcements.
Russia has heavily prioritized the militarization of its sort of western military region, that is across the border from us. They have hundreds of thousands of men there, well trained, well equipped. The military modernization program focused, while all of Europe and NATO was cutting the defense expenditure, was focusing just in this region. So we need to respond to this.
NATO's analysts doubt that Russia would ever invade the Baltic states in a conventional sense. During the 2014 invasion of Ukraine, Russian troops entered the Donbass and the Crimea regions, ostensibly to protect Ukraine's Russian minority. 30% of Estonians are of Russian origin, however, and some fear this leaves the country open to a similar ruse.
In Estonia, the Russian minority would, I would say like 90% probably would be against NATO here. Yeah, it's connected to the fact that most of local Russians actually are in the sphere of information of Kremlin. So they watch Russian channels, they listen to Russian radio, and even our local Russian language journalist channels or media channels, they quite often take the position of Kremlin.
Estonia's history as a Russian satellite casts a long shadow. At the border, an Estonian and Russian castle face off against each other over the river Narva. The Estonian fort is full of Russian tourists. So is Narva's mainly Russian population a potential fifth column? Tamil Mazir, professor of history at the University of Tartu, doubts it.
I think the threat is unreal. That's just, for journalists, of course, it's logical when you look at a map. The closest point of EU to Russia, the easternmost. It's probably the most Russian city in EU, Eastern European Union, and of course there can be this question, but I think it's more high. Yes, they do identify themselves with Russia through the nationality and language, but they understand perfectly that they don't want to live there.
On the outskirts of Tallinn, this Russian military cemetery provides a reminder of Estonia's recent past. This bronze statue was moved here after its site in the centre of Tallinn became a focal point for Russian and Estonian nationalists. A cyber attack which followed was blamed on retaliation by the Russian government.
Raising concerns ever since the cyber attacks in Estonia in 2007, since Russia-Georgia war, that the threat is coming. The Russians have been working heavily to aiming their hostile propaganda at the Russian speakers in the Baltic states. The Russian regime and its special services, especially GRU, the SVR, Foreign Intelligence Service, FSB, they're especially good at providing a spark and engineering, totally artificially, an empty spot, a crisis. And those kind of perceptions would be instrumental in engineering that crisis.
But for all the concern, this type of nationalism seems a minority position. Katja Kort, herself an Estonian of Russian origin, explains why.
Well, I guess I think of myself as Estonian citizen, as a European. I don't like the idea of Great Russian Empire because the myth was that everyone joined it voluntarily, but reality was quite completely different. And I think living in Estonia and being a European citizen, I have to think first about the security in my country.
The Estonian government is also taking measures to counter any nationalist propaganda.
This issue that we have here that we have been trying to tackle by creating a sort of a national extra sort of Russian speaking channel here. They're proud to be Russian, which I understand completely, and they're welcome to be proud Russians, but like all the freedoms and welfare and everything else that they get in this country, as part of the sort of European Western world, is of course many-fold bigger than what they would get back home. I mean, it's a democratic, free country, transparency and rule of law, and very little corruption and so on and so forth. So, you know, I mean, when they compare, they understand.
Perhaps this former Soviet prison sums up many Estonians' attitude to their Russian past. It is now a cafe where trendy talonistas can be served coffee by guards in mock KGB uniforms. As the sun sets over the Baltic Sea, Estonia's history feels very firmly in its past. It is difficult to imagine Estonians winning it back. Henry Williams reporting from Tallinn.
Hinna puhul see lepib kokku, siin ei ole nagu selles suhtes küsimust. Nojah, aga sellised 4 on tapeet ja 5 on koos tapeet maha võttes, täna vist terve